Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Ty Harrison, and I'd like to welcome you to the first of a series of conversations that we'll be having with real estate and real estate lending professionals regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion within our industries. We will also touch on dynamics impacting homeownership rates among Black and Hispanic communities within the United States. Again, my name is Ty Harrison. I work within SWBC's Financial Institutions Division, and I head up our Lending and Insurance Solutions group. I've been working with financial institutions in the areas of lending and insurance services for the last 18 years, and my group currently consists of our appraisal management company, our white label PNC insurance agency model, our primary and excess flood insurance programs, and our real estate lending settlement services platform. Today, for our first show, I am lucky enough to have a friend and a colleague here with me, Mr. F.A. Aghimien. F.A., thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about F.A. and give you some background. So F.A., again, is our Chief Financial Officer within SWBC's Mortgage Corporation. He has over 20 years of experience in his field. He received his bachelor's degree and his MBA from the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. He is a CPA, a certified mortgage banker, and an accredited American mortgage professional. He serves on the Mortgage Bankers Association's Affordable Housing Committee and their Finance and Accounting Steering Committee. FA is a board member for a great organization, Home Free USA, which is committed to assisting underserved individuals as they strive to attain home ownership with the goal of reducing the wealth gap among minority communities. Okay, so FA, you know I've been dying to have this conversation. We actually touched on this a few weeks ago.
We did.
We ran into each other at headquarters, tiered headquarters, near the elevators, and
right.
There were some things going on in the news about homeownership rates among Black communities, and obviously that short side of it with the mortgage lending. So you were telling me some things about that and things that you and the Mortgage Corp are trying to do to extend more loans to minority groups. And then at the same time, there was some things in the news about appraisal bias and the decades and decades of appraisal bias in the minority communities that have impacted home valuations, which obviously I see on my side with the appraisal management company and the world that I live in. So I want to revisit some of the topics that we touched on. But first, I just want to ask you if you could share a little bit about the experiences you've had or the things you've seen in the mortgage lending world that have gotten you to this point where you feel driven to do something about these issues and to get more involved.
Very good question. So the first question, what have I seen and experienced? You know, it's not hyperbole to say that we are in a affordable housing crisis, right? Particularly for Black and brown borrowers, right? So there's a study out there that shows that of the individuals that are eligible to be a homeowner, 70% of Caucasians own a home, right?
Wow.
And then you look at the other demographics from Asians, there are about 60% of them that own a home, right? And then when you look at Hispanics, 50% of them own a home. And then lastly, African Americans, 40% own a home. So you're talking about a 30% delta for, you know, Black homeowners and a 20% delta for Hispanic homeowners, right? So this has been the biggest gulf since the Fair Housing Act was passed in the late 60s.
And I just want to jump in right there. So I've seen some of this, and it's really been shocking to me to see that. So you see the charts, and you think about everything that has happened throughout this time and all the different things you've heard at different points in your career about things that are supposed to change this. Yet that gap has just gotten wider and wider and wider. And then when you hear all this news about people buying up homes, and you think maybe something is changing, but you look at it and that gap is still getting wider. It's pretty shocking when you see it.
Yes. So part of the cause, there are various causes for that gap, but part of it is representation, right? So there aren't a whole lot of Black loan officers, Black appraisers, right? So when Black prospective homeowners are looking to buy a house, right, they don't know anyone that they can go to.
Exactly.
And then conversely, right, the white community of of loan officers and realtors don't know how to penetrate into that diverse market. So,
Exactly.
so there is some systemic issues there. And then there's partly education, right? So there isn't enough being done to counsel and educate the African American community and the Hispanic communities about what it takes to qualify for a loan and the financial literacy that's involved for getting ready to build up enough savings to qualify for the loan. So why this issue is very important is that traditionally for over 100 years now in this country, the biggest source of generational wealth has been home equity, right?
Exactly.
So when you see that there's a disproportionate group of diverse demographic that do not participate in that wealth generation, it is very alarming.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's amazing, hearing you say that, and it comes so clear. I've read so much about this, and you see different angles, and you hear about the credit worthiness, and you'll see some studies, and it comes back, oh, well, the issue is that they didn't have this and this, but the truth is this is a systemic issue that starts very far back in the past, and there are a lot of things that need to be done. There's not one thing. There are many things that need to be done to try to address this issue.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I don't think you can solve the problem overnight, but I really appreciate the fact that you're bringing the attention to this topic, because while it is front and center, I think you have to basically address it from different angles, from regulations to realtors, loan officers, appraisers, insurance. So all of those parties really have to come to the table to collectively address this.
And this is a good way to segue into this next question I really want to kind of put out there for you. So, all right, so we're in these circles, we're at these conferences, we're talking to all these folks that are all in this business, and you see what's happening with interest rates. You see that, especially in your world, it impacts me obviously directly too with insurance sales and appraisals. But you're saying, okay, banks are going to have to look for different ways to grow. Mortgage lenders are going to have to find different ways to do this thing if they're going to get ahead. And you start hearing in these conferences, or you see, more information coming out about these emerging markets, as they like to call them, these emerging markets, these minority groups that could become a bigger share of these loans moving forward. And one side of me with these concerns is, okay, this is great. There's things happening with the government where they're trying to push through some things that could help us focus on these groups. Maybe this is really happening, but then you stop and you think, oh, I've heard some of this before. This isn't brand new. I guess my question to you is, are there enough things lining up at this point where you feel confident that there could be a legitimate shift in terms of where mortgage lenders are looking to grow their markets? Are they really ready to do those additional things around financial literacy, to put the programs together? I've read some things about JP Morgan and some things that they were trying to do with some grants to try to focus on these areas. Is this real? Are we really going to see something shift, or do you think there's still a lot of work to be done to pull lenders into this vision?
Very good question. You're right. There is a fundamental change that has been building up over the past few years. But there's still work that needs to be done, right? So to start with your question, what's new, and why should companies care, right? Well, there's an old adage in business: if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense, right? So companies are looking for their own benefit. How do they benefit from being focused on this particular issue? Well, let's flip the script, right? So initially I talked about the stats, right? So what those stats show is that there are 60% of untapped African Americans that are eligible today that do not own a home, right? So when you're looking at short-term strategies, to serve a demographic for your own financial profitability, you have a segment that is ripe for the picking, right? For serving, right? So, and then again, look at the Hispanics, 50%, right? So I think from a short-term perspective, more companies are flocking to the market to serve the underserved communities because it's going to benefit them immediately. Now let's look at long term. Long term, it's no secret the census data has shown that in 20 years, the Caucasians in the U.S. will be a minority group.
Yes.
Right? Meaning that they will have been surpassed by what we're calling the minorities today, the Black and brown community, right? So when you're looking at your long-term vision for financial planning and sustainability, if you're disregarding this demographic, then you will be quickly out of business over the next decade or so, right? So it makes a lot of sense for the motivation, right? And then you talked about some of the parties that have been acting thus far, right? So we've seen that the Biden administration has a plan in place, and while they have certainly brought the attention to light, it does not move the needle far enough, right? You've seen Sandra Thompson and FHFA, they are getting involved. They're announcing various programs like a special purpose credit program that will make it easier to remove some of the barriers that existed, regulations, red tape that existed in serving this community, as well as offering some financial incentives, literacy, home counseling services as well. So those are certainly things that are in the works. You look at the agencies, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they've announced recently, within the past month, a plan, affordable housing plan as well. So when you see the major parties being involved, from the regulators to the agencies, it really is very positive, right? Because you can see that they are now, starting to get some inertia and movement with not just talking about it, but doing something about it.
And I loved all of that. And the thing that really stuck with me is this demographic thing, right? So when you see what those trends are, and you see that census data, you're thinking to yourself, not only should they, but they should be urgently doing this. This is coming soon. There needs to be more diversity within our industries so that these people are better represented, so that they feel more comfortable getting into this. We already know they know too little about this business. There's too much they don't know. More has to be done to bring them in, to get them comfortable to working with these individuals, especially with so much history of bias, right? Especially looking at the appraisal side from the things we discussed, right? We've got thousands of great appraisers working with us in our appraisal management company who do everything they can to not send in a biased or any kind of errored appraisal. Yet this still happens, and it happens routinely throughout the industry because of these biases. And we need to bring more people, more representation into this market so that we can try to address some of these issues. It's not the only way to do it, but it's a great way to help us progress a lot faster to address these issues that we see.
Absolutely agree.
All right, so you gave me a great talk on that, but there was a little piece I was looking for you didn't give me. So I'm gonna ask. So I know you can't give away your secret sauce, but as far as what you're doing and what SWBC's Mortgage Corporation is doing, is there anything specific that you guys are looking at right now where we as a company can do more to try to extend more loans to these minority groups and try to put a dent into this gap?
Absolutely. And first, let me step back. I think, I know that the organization that I represent, SWBC, from the top down, has been very committed to this initiative, right? So from Charlie Amato, Gary Dudley, and our past MBA chairwoman and my boss and CEO, Susan Stewart, she's been very in tune to this initiative and been working with the MBA to rally support for this over the past several years. In fact, this was her number one agenda during her MBA. So what that manifested itself was really a pilot program that we are developing in the mortgage division, right? And what we're trying to do, we're working with a lead generation service provider to basically target, the Black and brown demographics here in Texas, as well as individuals that are below the median income line. Right. Mm-hmm. So and based on that profile, we want to make sure that we align the resources, loan officers, in a call center to start informing those borrowers, when they meet the eligibility of loans. So it's a pilot. We've been working for the past several months, but we believe that we'll be able to roll it out by the end of Q3. And while we are starting to collect the data and results, if it's successful, which I hope it is, we will then roll it out to our other 42 states as well.
Oh my God, you guys, you never stop impressing, man. That's awesome. Please keep that up. That is awesome news. And I know you guys, you are an incredible organization, lots of good people. If you guys want that thing to work, it's going to work. So it's really good to hear that. And I got to shout out to Susan Stewart. So you were talking about Susan, and she was hell-bent on getting that message out. And it was pretty amazing to see some of those presentations that she did. And I don't know, it was a few months ago, I was at a presentation at an event actually here in San Antonio, and she was speaking to a group of lenders. And at the very end, she just touched on this. There were some questions about it. So she went into this. It was unprepared, unscripted. It was just some questions. And the way she addressed this issue, the way she talked was such a great background and education of what is going on and what needs to be done and what is being done was so impressive. And I was sitting in the front row. I knew Susan was speaking, so I was sitting in the front row. And when she walked down, I walked up to her and I said, "I'm gonna make you proud." I was like, "I love what you just did. I'm gonna do something that you'll appreciate." So Susan, if you're watching, this is what I was talking about. You inspired me. It was great to see you do that. And we all appreciate you for what you've done. Okay, so F.A., we had talked about the experiences that I've had that got me motivated about, getting into this and having these conversations. And, you were just saying some things that really got me to thinking about all that energy that I had that made me want to do this. Right. I think about 18 years of being at these conferences, and I'm lucky enough to represent a lot of different angles of this business, right? Yep. So I'm at property valuation conferences and insurance conferences, and I'm at insurance conferences where we're partnering with Lloyd's of London, and half the people from there that are there are from Europe. And so it's a whole new group of people to work with. And then I'm at the mortgage bankers where there's no credit unions, but there's all these banks. And then I'm at these non-mortgage lending conferences. And the one thing that kept coming back to me is how few Black people are at these events.
Of course.
From the insurance angles to the property valuations, there's just not enough of us here. Yeah. And then as I see this conversation coming up more and more about this thing that's happening and thing that mortgage lenders should be taking advantage of for growth purposes in terms of focusing on these emerging markets, yet so few of us are in this conversation. And it really made me feel like I had to do something. I need to talk to people. I'm here, I'm seeing this. It's front and center. I need to reach out to people. And it's basically two sides of the same coin. You've got on the homeownership side, where you're underrepresented, right? A lot of these folks, a lot of Black people, young Black professionals are growing up in homes as kids where their parents didn't own their home. Yep. So it might not have even been emphasized. They might not have even been introduced to property ownership. And then with that comes some of the career opportunities associated with that same thing. So you got this real estate lending and mortgage banking ecosystem that is driving wealth in our nation and in the world in so many ways. Yep. You need to own a home to build wealth, to gain that equity, but at the same time, there's all these careers tied to this thing driving wealth, and we're not in that either. And for me, I had a moment and I'm thinking, I can't solve this, but I can at least bring attention to the people and the organizations that are working to do that. So I want to thank you because you're one of those people. You were the first one I wanted to talk to because I know what you're doing. I know where your heart is. And a part of what showed me where your heart was when you introduced me to Home Free USA. Yes. And you showed me what they were doing, right? So again, we mentioned them earlier. I know they're focusing on underserved, trying to help people attain home ownership, right? And they're focused on reducing this wealth gap, reducing these home ownership gaps, right? Maybe you can tell the audience just a little bit about Home Free USA, what you guys do over there, and just where they're going as an organization.
Of course. I've been fortunate and honored to serve on the board of Home Free USA. And you talked about, two key issues within the financial sector and mortgage. One is assisting people that are underserved and getting them home ready to ultimately purchase a home and build generational wealth. And then two, trying to get more representation in this market, right? So, I was fortunate because as I connected with Marcia at Home Free was actually through Susan Stewart a few years ago. And when I discovered their agenda and how they were addressing the two issues that you've mentioned, I was impressed. I mean, it's somewhat of a holy grail approach, right? A holistic approach. So first, what Home Free does, right? So they offer counseling, financial literacy counseling, as well as servicing counseling to help people that currently own homes that are having difficulties make their payments. They work with them to show them how they can make modifications to stay in their home, right? And then for the underserved, the individuals that do not have the loan officers or realtors reaching out to them, they provide them with the education, say, hey, you are home ready, right? And they work with them to partner them with the appropriate third-party vendors, right? So they offer the financial literacy and housing counseling to get folks into a home, right? So that's the first dynamic. The second dynamic is the representation. Home Free also offers financial support and literacy to historically Black college and universities. So in fact, right now they represent 10 major HBCUs, and they partnered with those universities and the students to create what they call a Center of Financial Advancement Program, CFA. And they essentially, I think roughly about 50 students per university. They groomed them and they trained them through various aspects of the financial sector, right? So whether it's grooming them to be LOs, realtors, appraisers, insurance and valuation experts, but the goal is, you don't tackle this problem short term. You have to have a long-term strategy, right? So as these students are getting through college, they are now exposed to the financial sector and job placement as well. A lot of other companies have participated in the CFA to provide internships, including SWBC, and it's been rolled out for the past 5 years, and we've seen roughly 60% conversion rate of the students going back into a financial sector. Oh,
really? That's a great success rate. Yes, that's wonderful. And I did know a little bit about that. You guys have an event coming up this fall. Hopefully we can provide some information out for the audience about that. But again, I think it's in Atlanta later this fall, where the HBCU, some select students are going to be there, and a number of professionals from the industry are going to go out there and speak. I hope to be there. I hope to be at that event this fall.
The conference.
Reaching me, exactly. Yes. So yes, I plan to be there. That's again, it's a great opportunity to reach those students and try to bring more people into this industry with a good knowledge base about what's going on and how they can help.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you for that. Again, Home Free USA, we're going to provide you guys with some information about that. A great organization. They're doing so much good out there, and we need to get some of those folks here with me so I can interview them and get them to tell us firsthand about some of the things that they're doing. So again, FA, I always love talking to you here or at the elevator. It's all good. Anytime I get with you is awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, I want to thank you for bringing the spotlight to this issue because, like I said before, while, a lot of parties have been interested and motivated to make a change over the years, I think the more individuals like yourself that are bringing that attention, critical attention to it, the more positive changes will occur in the future.
Man, I appreciate that so much. That is at the heart of what we want to do. If you're out there and you know this story, if you're a part of this story, we invite you to the show. We want you to talk. We want you to be in this conversation. For those of you who don't know much about the mortgage industry, maybe you're young, you're just out of college, or maybe you're still at a university and you're considering where you might want to go. We need you in this industry. We need allies for these buyers. We need people to help us with the diversity needs in this industry to help us address these issues, these big issues that are systemic, and there's no one solution, but you can be a big part of that solution. So again, we welcome you to join us. We will be doing this again. You will have a new guest and we will continue this conversation. I want to thank FA again for joining us. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Please stick with us. We're going to have a lot of interesting conversations around all different angles of this issue. And we're looking forward to learning with you, sharing with you, and bringing more of you into this conversation. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you again soon. Hey, thank you guys for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. More videos are on the way.